we're going to specifically try and relate it back to the question, right? You know, that's the real sort of key, right? We want to link it. Yeah, you know, we really want to link it back to the back to the concept of, you know, what happens if the stream of money here is coming from a rich business person, okay? Does it make a difference to if it comes from anywhere else? That's something that we have to think about a bit. So let's get into the diagrammatic analysis. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a supply and demand diagram on this page, right? We're going to draw a supply and demand diagram. Now we're going to label, so obviously we've got our output here, Y. On this axis, we have our inflation rate, okay? So we've got our inflation rate and our output. Now, we'll just do a fairly straightforward supply and demand sort of setup, okay? So we're going to just draw straight lines to keep it, you know, sort of feasible. So there we go. Straight line 1, straight line 2, okay? And these are going to represent, of course, your aggregate demand and your aggregate supply, okay? Now we assume that there's no, at the moment, we assume that the supply remains the same, okay? There's a fixed level of supply. Consider this to be some sort of economy, you know, consider this to be an economy of, you know, represent an economy that mainly has, let's say, an economy that mainly has a group of building companies that is in fixed supply. Okay, that's key. The fact that it's in fixed supply. It's critical that it's in fixed supply. That absolutely mission critical. Okay. So yeah, consider this. Now think carefully, okay? Think carefully about how if you've got the buildings companies in fixed supply, then this is essentially going to fix our aggregate supply, right? So we're going to end up holding our aggregate supply constant. Aggregate supply is fixed. There it is, it remains there. And so the only thing that can vary is our aggregate demand. And this is where we can impose the scenario that we just discussed, right? So what happens is, you know, the government, no, sorry, not the government here. You know, let's say, you know, a large firm with high capital reserves wants to invest in, you know, the production of some critical and large assets. The production will be significantly large, and therefore needs a huge sort of supply to meet its potential. Okay, so it needs a huge supply to meet its potential. So what happens is the next stage along, right, is the successful business, you know, the successful business owner, as we like to call it with respect to the question. You know, the sort of the company, you know, the company will need to bid and, you know, negotiate the pricing structure of the building project. But once agreed, you know, once agreed, oh, sorry. Yeah, once agreed, the public sector, you know, the public sector, or just before we get on to this, actually, you know, what this is going to do is this is going to cause a shift, right, in the aggregate demand. So we're going to see a movement from, change the color so it's nice and obvious. We're going to see a move from our aggregate demand 1 to our aggregate demand 2. Okay, so that's going to be, this is going to be our AD2, which I will just put on with a pen here. So this is going to be AD2. Okay. So there's AD2. So that's aggregate demand and then aggregate demand 2. And what's happened is so this is representing the company's bidding, okay? This is really representing the company's bidding. What's happening is the supply side is doing its absolute best, okay? The supply side is doing its absolute best to keep up with the demands, but it's just not quite enough, okay? It just can't quite get there. Can't quite meet meet the needs of the private sector. So they have to increase their prices as well, right? So this is the inflation that occurs because the demand is high. This is the increase in output that occurs because the demand is high. So what we've ended up with is there is a huge, the project may bring, great benefit to society and therefore making, making business people um essential and beneficial. Yeah, essential and good. However, the benefits of these expenditures can be undermined by any inflation induced by the business owner's large spend.